we know who'll be wearing the red and white in Italy for Team Canada. And our pal Marty Biron joins us now to break down the roster. I mean, I'll ask you the question that everyone is asking here. Just thoughts on Mark Scheifele not making the team. He's fourth in scoring amongst Canadian players, I believe, right now. I mean, only Celebrini, Crosby, and McDavid have been more productive than Scheifele this year. Had a monster season last year. Seemed like he'd done everything he possibly could do to make the team. Why do you think he's not going to Italy?
I think it probably came down between Scheifele and Suzuki. So you have to kind of fill roles, right? And you're looking at the roster. Okay, so you've got McDavid as a center. You got McKinnon as a center, probably playing Crosby on the wing. And then you have, I think John Cooper likes his Tampa guys, and that's fine. Like, he likes, Point was going to be on the team. Hegel, I think, was going to be on the team. It was coming down to Cirelli, and I think he likes Cirelli as a fourth-line center, can trust him, kill penalties, whatever. Okay, so now you have the third-line center spot open, and you're looking at who's filling in on the wing, right? And so you're looking at two players, Nick Suzuki and Mark Scheifele. It's hard to say. I think I would have put Suzuki ahead of Scheifele, and I think Team Canada put Suzuki just ahead of Scheifele. But do I think Scheifele is a better player than Anthony Cirelli? Yeah. Do I think Scheifele is better than Bo Horvat? Yeah. But I think it came down to roles. And look, if Canada goes out and wins gold medal, they made the right decision. If they go out and don't get a gold medal, then it's like, well, you should have had Scheifele on the team. Just like last year, Team USA with Kyle Connor. What were you doing not playing Connor in the finals? But if they win, you made the right decision. But if they lost, obviously they made the wrong decision. So I think it comes down to the results. It was probably really close. It was close for me. I kept going back, Scheifele, Suzuki, Scheifele. And I think I settled on Suzuki, and that's probably what Team Canada did as well.
The Bo Horvat one is interesting to me. Why do you think Horvat is there? And if it came down to Scheifele or Suzuki, what made Horvat ahead of those guys? I mean, both guys are scoring at a far better rate. Horvat does have 21 goals, and Doug Armstrong mentioned sort of his ability to do things without a lot of room. I mean, is this a guy that's going to be banging in front of the net? Is that sort of the plan for Bo Horvat?
Maybe it is, but right now I don't even have Horvat as top 12 forwards, right? I have him and potentially Wilson as the extra to start the tournament. And maybe the goals are something that they're looking at and saying, okay, well, if at some point in the tournament we're not producing offense, do we need more goals? Well, okay, well, Scheifele has like just 3 goals less than Horvat right now, I think. So it's like it's not that much of a difference. Maybe it's just a preference. Look, Scheifele got passed last year, got passed this year. Maybe they just don't have that good a vibe when it comes to Mark Scheifele, and that's what it is. When you build a team with that amount of quality players, sometimes there's going to be somebody that's going to say, hey, you know what? I like ketchup, mustard, and relish on my hot dogs. And somebody says, no, I like only mustard. And that's what it comes down to. I don't know why Mark Scheifele is not on the team. If he was on my selection, he'd be a top 14. He wouldn't have been ahead of Suzuki. And maybe that's, again, it comes down to, okay, well, who do you want as an extra? Horvat, Wilson. Wilson can come in and fight his way through if the Team USA wants to throw down like they did in the Four Nations or whatnot. Okay, and Wilson scored a ton of goals this year, so fine. I mean, it works. The Horvat one is puzzling to me. That's probably the one that I think Scheifele could have been in that spot.
Yeah, I can't help but think that some of this is the way Hockey Canada does business and the importance that they put on NHL players going to the World Championships. And I'll mention Horvat, who was there, had a good tournament, and that was sort of referenced when they mentioned him being on the team. And Connor Bedard not being on the team. And Bedard's had a monster season. You see what's happened to Chicago since he's been out, Marty. But it was quite noteworthy that when Bedard said no to Team Canada last year, put it this way. I said on the show, I thought it was an insane thing to do. I didn't think it was going to help him long term. And after such a miserable season, I thought getting out there with the likes of Crosby and McKinnon and Macklin Celebrini, who's on the team, would have been really beneficial for him. I mean, whether we're talking about Bedard or Bo Horvat, how much of that is a part of the final decision making of the guys that are in the Hockey Canada brass?
I mean, I think it does play a little bit, especially if you're on the bubble, right? Like Crosby and McKinnon going last year, they were going to be on the team. It didn't matter. But for years, remember, like it was Ryan Smith, Captain Canada. I mean, I went to the World Championship in 2003 and we won, and Ryan Smith was there, and you knew that anytime Canada was going to call or, you know, anybody to be their Olympics or World Championship or World Cup or whatever, he was going to get the call. He was there. I can't say that for, let's say, Scheifele, that played into it, because as you were saying before I came on, look, I mean, he's busy. He's in the playoffs. So you can't, you know, you can't fault a player for being in the playoffs and saying, well, you didn't go to the World Championship. They didn't ask him. I mean, he went to the second round. There's no room. There's no opportunity for him to go. But I think for Connor Bedard, it may have played a little bit. I thought that was a little bit. I made that same stupid decision one year. I had Lanny McDonald call me in 2002 and said, Marty, we'd love for you to be on the World Championship team. And I said to Lanny McDonald, of all people, I said, Lanny, I appreciate it. It's flattering. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to decline. I'm, you know, I don't have a contract for next year, so I got to figure that out first. I'm getting married this summer. There's a lot going on. And then, like, I look back at it, and I'm like, what was I thinking? And I turned down Lanny McDonald and Team Canada at the O2 World Championship right after an Olympic year, and I was starting to grow in I'm like, I should have said yes. And then the next year I went, and it was great, but looking back, that was the stupidest call that I took, and the answer that I gave, like Lanny McDonald, and I joke with him when I see him at the Hall of Fame or whatnot. I'm like, I said no to you. He goes, Marty, I remember that. Not the brightest response and whatever. So it's, but I think Connor Bedard's going to look back and probably think, I probably should have gone. Now, do I think that his performances this year put him in the conversation? Yeah. And you said Chicago has been nothing like they were at the start of the year. Him and Frankie Nazar out is bad for them. But I think he would have been on the out, and maybe the World Championship would have helped him get in. But who else do you take now? Like if Connor Bedard is in, who else do you take out of that lineup? It's a pretty strong lineup.
Well, what do you think about the likes of taking, I mean, Cirelli, for instance? I mean, essentially a bottom six player when you have all of these other incredible Canadians that may play different roles. But, I mean, that's great if you got a 2-goal lead. I mean, what if you need to score a goal? Not that there's not a lot of guys that can't do that right now, Marty, but, you know, we've seen before some very dubious selections from Canada. I mean, I think of Rob Zaminer a few years ago, you know, and I mean, when you don't win the gold medal, I mean, people have long memories of those. Is this a matter of just appeasing the coach and saying, hey, you know, these are the guys that are obviously on the team. How do you want to see the rest of it made up? And that would be a big influence from the guy that's behind the bench.
I think the guy behind the bench likes certain guys. When I went to the World Juniors, and we're talking World Juniors, it's that time of year. I remember Mike Babcock was our coach, and he brought in 2 or 3 guys from his, I think he was coaching in Spokane back then, and guys that I had never heard about. Like, they weren't going to be first-round picks. They weren't going to be, and I'm like, what are these guys doing? But they were role guys, and he wanted them on his team. I think John Cooper's doing the same thing here. And I can't fault John Cooper because he did win the Four Nations face-off last year. He won a couple of Stanley Cups recently with those guys. He knows that they can perform under pressure at the highest of level in the biggest stage, and he's comfortable with it. So I think there is a little bit of favoritism that gets played when it comes to that, but we can also remember when Steve Yzerman did not pick Marty St. Louis, and that was a big like, oh, St. Louis was not happy, right? And that also, you don't want that on your team. Like, I don't think Cirelli would be angry at John Cooper, but John Cooper's got to think, I have a good team this year, and I want to win another cup, and I got to make everybody happy. I think it plays in a little bit, but at the end of the day, if you win, everybody's happy. If you lose, they're going to go and criticize every single decision you made. That's just part of the deal.
Yeah, you know what? I see Remus is giving me a hard time. Xamaner a few years ago, that was 1998, 27 years ago. But that's what I'm saying. People have long memories. When you pick guys like that and don't win.
Right? They lost in the shootout to Czech Republic. And at the time, we remember, like, Gretzky did not go in the shootout. That was against Dominik Hasek. So, but if you win and you win gold, then you say, well, Gretzky, you know, there was other players that maybe were better than him for shootout, but they ran into Dom, and Dom ended up beating Russia. What was it, 1-0, I think, in the final gold medal game. So that's, that's pretty crazy. Mark Crawford probably still doesn't go through a week of his life without getting asked about that. Marty, before we get to the goaltending, let's move to the blue line. And I mean, it's just status quo. It's the exact same group that they had at the Four Nations. Of course, Thomas Harley was a mid-tourney addition based on injuries, cut his vacation short to come out. To be honest, I mean, he's surprisingly, I think, a minus player on Dallas. Like, it hasn't been an amazing season for him. We've seen this brilliance of Matthew Schaefer. Jacob Chikrin's having a huge year for the Washington Capitals. What did you make of just standing pat with that Four Nations Defense Corps group? And was there a guy or two that you were surprised that wasn't included on the team? I mean, I looked at Matthew Schaefer and I thought, you know, this could be a really good story. You know, having Celebrini and Schaefer, two guys that could be playing in the World Juniors, by the way, and get named to the Olympic team, like, that'd be pretty cool. Give him the experience of what it is to go to the Olympics. The NHL players have not gone to the Olympics since Sochi. So, you know, that's a couple of Olympics that they've missed, and now they get back. And, you know, Schaefer will be most likely on Team Canada in 4 years and 8 years down the road, especially if he continues the way that he is. I thought he could get there. I thought there was a spot for him. Now, who do you take out? That's the big thing. I think Thomas Harley earned his spot, although I thought Travis Sanheim maybe was going to be one that was going to be left off. You know, you do have Parayko and Morrissey and Theodore, Makar and Taze, obviously they're there. I was going to give Drew Doughty his spot on the team. That's fine. But I thought if you have, you know, Schaefer in there, maybe Chikrin, probably in the place of Travis Sanheim. But again, you got to also know who played well last year, lefty, righty, who seems to have chemistry together. I think that they decided not to change it because they played well defensively. They were a good group on the blue line, and nobody really lost their spot this year. Like, there was nobody that you can look and say, they are not playing at the level you would want them to, so nobody really fell out of favor.
One other guy I wanted to actually ask you about was Mark Stone. And, of course, he's a Winnipeg guy, and there's a lot of people that'll be pumped for him. You know, he's been productive. Yeah. He's been out a little bit so far this season, but it did seem at the Four Nations, which was the fastest brand of hockey that the sport has ever been played in the sport, that it was maybe a little quick for him. Mm-hmm. What do you make of Stone's inclusion on the team, and what's his role?
Well, his role is going to be, for me, a bottom six guy, maybe a third line guy that's going to be responsible defensively. You're right. Like, earlier in the year, I would do my own like Team Canada projection, and I didn't have Mark Stone on. And then he came back, and then all of a sudden I look and I'm like, look at the production this guy's putting. And Vegas is banged up. They don't have the players. They got a lot of injuries, and Mark Stone keeps producing and keeps, you know, being in the box score and keeps scoring goals. And I'm like, okay, I got to really think of Mark Stone. And you're right. He's not the fastest. I did play with a lot of players that were so smart that made sure that they could overcome that. At the NHL level, he can. He struggled a little bit at the Four Nations face-off, but that is another player that you won with, that has won a Stanley Cup, that understands what it takes, how to handle, the media, the pressure, the family being around, the distractions. He's done it. He's done it multiple times. I mean, Vegas is probably the most distraction city in the world, and he's done it. So maybe that's where you take a guy like Mark Stone and you say, yeah, I'm going to like this. I'm going to put him on my team. I didn't have him on my team earlier. Maybe I had Connor Bedard in there before Mark Stone, and then maybe in the last few weeks it changed. Mark Stone was back on my team. So I like that he was able to produce. If he hadn't produced, he wouldn't have been on the radar at all for me.
He's got 9 goals and 21 assists in 21 games, 31 points. And he is, Odog on the TSN broadcast today said, hey, 3 minutes left in a game that you're winning. Do you want Connor Bedard out there taking care of the lead, or do you want Mark Stone? And I guess I can sort of understand that.
If you need a goal, you got McDavid, McKinnon, you got Crosby, you got Celebrini, you got those guys out there. If you're up a goal and you need to kill the clock, you're going to have Cirelli, Hagel, going to have Suzuki, Stone. Those are the guys you're going to put out there.
Yeah, and I do think that Mark, being a captain, having won so many different things in a cup, and obviously, with the Four Nations, is also a guy that if he wasn't in the lineup would be, still a good asset to the team. They would know exactly what they'd get out of him. There'd be no attitude about it. So it'd be interesting to see that. Wilson is the other guy that I did want to ask you about, because it is important to remember that this is double IHF rules.
Yes.
This is not the Four Nations face-off. There will not be fighting in this event. Now, he had 33 goals last year. He's an incredible physical presence. He's got more. He's on a 40-goal pace this season. Yeah. So I actually do believe that he's earned his way onto this team. But I do wonder what the fit is. Is he going to be up playing, potentially with a McDavid or one of those guys, and kind of a unique, kind of real physical presence, size, get in front of the net, work with that? Or is he going to be essentially like a fourth line guy, or as you said, maybe an extra to start the tournament?
Potentially an extra to start the tournament, but I do believe that at the end of the day, it was probably down, for me anyway, between Sam Bennett and Tom Wilson. Which one do you take? You can't take both. There's no room to have both of them. The U.S. will have both Kachucks on the team, and if the Kachucks want to, be the Brash brothers and run around, and you may have to have other guys step up, right? Maybe it's Drew Doughty, and maybe it's Colton Parayko. Maybe it's somebody that's going to step up with Tom Wilson. Maybe it's Marchand, maybe whatever. But I think it came down to Bennett or Wilson. I think you have more upside with Wilson in the scoring. He's bigger. He's stronger. Now, Bennett was there last. That had to be a really tough conversation to say, Sam Bennett, you are going to be left off the Olympic roster, when he was such a big part, in my opinion, of the Four Nations face-off win last year.
He scored the tying goal. He won the Conn Smythe back-to-back cups.
But he didn't start the year good. He didn't. And Tom Wilson did. And then all of a sudden I got to pick one of them, right? That's what it is. It's kind of like Suzuki, Scheifele. It was Wilson, Bennett. Well, it fell on the Wilson side, and maybe in 3 weeks from now, we would say, they probably would have wanted Bennett and not Wilson. But the decision needed to be made before the new year, and the rosters needed to be announced, and that's what it is. But I think Wilson, you get him in if all of a sudden you need a little bit more physicality, you need a net front presence. Maybe it comes in for Stone. If Stone is not playing well, maybe that's where Wilson fits in. If Marchand gets banged up, maybe that's where Wilson gets in. That's where I see him, a little bit lower in the lineup. I don't see him taking the spots of anybody in the top 6.
Marty Biron's with us, breaking down Canada's Olympic team. Let's get to your area of particular expertise, the net. There's been much consternation about the goaltending position for Canada in relation to their opponents in this event. Yes. For the Four Nations, they had Aiden Hill, they had Sam Montembeault, and Jordan Binnington. Hill's been hurt this year. Montembeault and Binnington have been two, by every measure, of the worst goaltenders in the league. If you dive into goals saved above expected, there's 84 goaltenders that have played. Linus Ullmark was 84th, just took a leave of absence. Jordan Binnington is 83rd. It's been a disaster this year for him in the net. Are you surprised that he's on the team, and would you have put Jordan Binnington on the 2026 Olympic team?
I'm not surprised that he's on the team, and I had Jordan Binnington on my team. I said his experience from last year, his experience from winning the Cup, could be very valuable to the team, to the group of goaltenders. The caveat here is that I don't have him playing game one against Czechia. I don't have him backing up. For me, there has been two guys that I had on my list that I think Team Canada had the same two guys. It was Logan Thompson, who to me has been the best Canadian goaltender in the last year and a half. They did not take him to the Four Nations face-off last year, probably because it was a small sample. Oh, we've only seen October, November, maybe that's going to fall off a cliff. Well, you know what? That didn't fall off a cliff, and that continued this year. So they had no choice but to take Logan Thompson. In performance alone, he is the best Canadian goaltender this year. Now, I think the other spot, I had Darcy Kemper. I think that winning a cup weighs in. I think that he's been very, very good to excellent with the LA Kings the last year and a half. A lot different than when he was with the Washington Capitals. So, but the cup is still a few years removed. It was with the Avalanche, but still, he won a cup. He's been really good with LA, been in the playoffs. That all counts. Mackenzie Blackwood was the other one that I thought could get there. I think Blackwood, Kemper, kind of the same thing to me, but Kemper has the cup. Blackwood, doesn't like. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go Thompson, Kemper, and then Jordan Binnington as the guy that, let's see, you're in trouble. You lost a couple of games. Goaltending's not great. You want to go to Binnington and say, go in. He's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder, and he's going to be that guy that's just, want to show the world, right? I think that works. But if you were to go to the Olympics with three goalies that have never really played at the international level, like Four Nations or Olympics, I think you're not helping yourself. So Binnington, part of the group with Thompson and Kemper, was what I had, and that's what Team Canada had as well.
Yeah, I echo your thoughts. I kind of thought that he'd be on the team, and like first and foremost, Doug Armstrong's his general manager, and we talked about John Cooper.
If you don't take him, you better trade him. Yeah, that's what it is.
Exactly.
And maybe he will be traded because Joel Hofer is playing better than him right now, but that's the problem you run into.
Well, that's the funny. I mean, if you're Joel Hofer, you're like, hey, Doug, I'm the guy that earned the job
I'm
right
Canadian
here.
too.
Yeah, no, don't. But there's people, including Dreger, who's pretty tied in, saying that they think that Jordan Binnington will be the starter for Canada in game one.
Yeah.
What would you like? How would that be received? Within the team and within that goaltending group, when there's one guy that is clearly more deserving of being the number one based on the last 2 years of actual play outside of the gold medal game.
I think he'd be fine. Look, whatever decision they're going to make, it's a tournament. Everybody wants to win. You go out, you perform, you win. Once again, everything is fine. I think I compared this a little bit to, look, when you're in the American League, you look around, you're like, I'm better than this guy. I'm better than that guy. Oh, this guy got called up, and look at what he's doing. Like sometimes when you go from one level to another, the game is different. And by the game being different, some guys will perform different. Look, I have my question mark when it comes to Logan Thompson because he's such a freewheeling type of goaltender. Not sure what to expect, right? When the game is going to be at that level, super fast, with the quality of shooters and passers. Maybe you're going to need a guy that's a little bit more technical, that is more about inside the crease, that is the foundation is a little bit better, which that's what Darcy Kemper is. So, but I don't think it would be a problem. I don't think you're going to ruffle any feathers if you say Jordan Binnington is my starter game one. That's not who I would go. And maybe my mind thinks backwards. I'm thinking If things go well, you ride with the goalie that you have, and that's fine. But you have to have a contingent plan on if things don't go well. If you could start with Binnington and you lose to Czechia, and then you have Binnington in game 2 and you lose, and now you're like, okay, what do we do? You're going to go with somebody that has zero experience at that level. So that's the where I'm at right now, where my brain thinks. I'm thinking of, plan B and plan C. And maybe I should just focus on plan A and say, this guy's going to go in and win and everything will be fine. But I always think of the other plans in my head.
Well, the only thing I'll counter to that is if you make the wrong decision and you start 0-2 at the Olympics, it might be a short tournament.
Yes, but all the teams are making it to the so-called medal round, right? There's 12 teams. The top 4 are advancing to the quarterfinals, and the other 8 teams are playing each other to go to the quarterfinals. So if you have a bad start, you're basically adding 1 game to your schedule. You're not all of a sudden, oh my goodness, you're going to play top competition because you may not get the easier matchups. But at the end of the day, when you think about US, Sweden, Czechia, Finland, like they're all top teams, especially at that level. You're going to have anybody can win. So I think you have time to kind of get through it and figure out what's the best way to go. And then if it didn't work, well, it's not like you all of a sudden are out, right? There's not 4 teams that are going to be fighting for relegation. It's not like the World Championship.